I gotta get. I told Brian. He's like, make sure you just take good notes on time codes and things for me.
Oh yeah, that's definitely.
And I'm like,
thing.
ooh, yeah, I guess I should get paper and pad here. Okay.
That's something I would definitely fail at.
I'm gonna forget.
That's what I mean. Like I'd just be like talking and talking and talking, and then something would happen, and I'd go to write down a time code 30 seconds after it happened, and be like, "Yeah, well, I missed that one."
I also haven't been writing any time codes down for like possibly usable stuff for the cold open, but
he's got 27 minutes of shit to listen to find some stuff.
Sorry, Brian. I just we'll figure that we'll get better at this as time goes on. I promise.
I mean, we can just come up with something to get them used to cold open right at the end here. We can, I don't know.
Oh, now we're on the
pressure.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it's not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed we don't screw up. That's the best we got.
You guys had one job.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bry Guy and His Super Friends. I am not Brian Labick, but I am one of your co-hosts for this evening, Josh Zorch. Joining me as my other co-conspirator is a person who, insert quippy intro here, Mike Bradley.
That's so much more polite than the shit Brian always gives me.
I've always been curious of what his source is. I partially want to imagine him like sitting around all week trying to think things up himself, and like I'd love to see like the rejection list. Like, what did he write down? Like 2 or 3 things for each of us. What did he cross off?
I feel like he's got a list where it's like, oh, that wasn't mean enough for Mike. We gotta let's try and be more ridiculous on that one.
And then you think he workshops it? He like sends it off to some people.
I feel like Andy's always sounding like a superhero, and you know, you're always sounding, I don't know, studious or something he tries to throw your way. Ian's kind of random, and then mine is always just like, and here's the shithead that's joining us for the evening.
Well, that is not the capacity that you're serving this evening, sir. Well,
you don't know that yet.
That is true. We, as Brian said at the end of last episode, what do you say? The inmates are running the nut house tonight.
Yeah.
So, listeners, thanks for coming on the journey with us today. This is the third occasion in which Mike and I will be doing this, but to you guys, it's actually only going to be the second because Mike and I lost the second episode.
Whoa.
Okay. Okay, fine. I will own it. I accidentally crashed and corrupted the file on my end, which resulted in the material being lost.
The file of my end still exists out there. Brian probably still has that somewhere that he could play for you. It just wouldn't make any sense.
That's fine. Yeah, listeners, if you start a hashtag campaign, if you want to hear Mike's one-sided conversation about a topic with no other response and lots of gaps of silence in between him speaking, you go out and do that. Send some notes to Bryguy and his superfriends at gmail.com.
Is that what it is? Are you sure that's the actual gmail.com address?
I'm pretty sure I've heard him say it many times enough. I actually didn't bother getting his whole like outro spiel from him to make sure I got it right. But
I'm sure he'll put it in at the end.
He's gotten so little to no communication through that anyway that it can't really make a difference.
I want to start emailing it daily.
You should just send like Jack Handy quotes.
Oh, it's gonna be way worse than that. It's not going to be that polite. Think like Michael Scott meets like Dirk Diggler, just sending shit to him, just for the hell of it.
All the office forwards.
Yeah, and I'm going to do it from like 6 different emails, so he doesn't even know it's me.
Of like yesteryear when people
the
at work or relatives would just spam me with email forwards.
Yeah. Yeah, cute cats and monkeys doing stupid shit.
Well, as jovial as we are sounding right now, listeners, we are here for a very serious and spooky reason. Mike and I are convening for our, what we meant to be semi-annual perhaps, but is right now turned into an annual tradition in the fall season of giving all of you awareness and information about this upcoming season's scary movies, horror movies, spooky films. Little background on this: we did get one out to you guys. We kicked this off really for the first time a little over 2 years ago. You can check out episode 163 of Bry Guy and His Super Friends that was released on August the 4th of 2019. The fun fact about the follow-up to that is Mike and I tried to record, as we mentioned a couple of minutes ago, we tried to record a second episode, which we did in early 2020 pre-COVID, that was meant to be sort of the spring and summer preview of horror movies. But as things went shitways on my end, we lost the show, so we didn't get it out there. And this is the first time we are getting back to it. To be fair, though, mostly, I mean, the rest of 2020 hardly had anything releasing to talk about.
And honestly, a lot of the movies we talked about didn't come out.
Right, and most of them got delayed, or they went straight to video eventually. Who knows what's happening with some of them? So
we'd have been getting you hyped for something that just wasn't going to happen. Which we're going to talk about eventually on this list, about how hyped I was for one of these that just hasn't happened yet. I'm still waiting,
but hopefully coming soon.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, maybe the fates intervened, and they knew we would get back to it someday, and here we are. So this is, I don't even know what to call this, like version 2.5, sort of.
This is our try and hoping Brian lets us keep doing it.
Beautiful. I love it. We're going to run with it.
Yeah.
So how we're going to run this, folks, is there are a couple of movies that have already been out there for you, either in theaters or a few of them might be on streaming options by this point. Typically, the quote scary movie season can kick in as early as August, and a few of those releases have come, and some of them have gone already, but coming soon. Probably you could get them on digital platforms pretty soon, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then after we hit a few of those, we'll give you sort of the upcoming slate in through October, November, December, and into early 2022. We'll give you a little bit of background on each of them. If either of us have seen any of these yet, we'll give you some of our quick thoughts on them and move on. Be prepared. This is going to maybe feel, we're not sure, maybe a little bit of like a quick roller coaster on each. We're going to try to keep the ball rolling and, only maybe hit about a 5-minute discussion for each of them. So strap in, and I guess here we go. Are you ready?
Well, I was going to say, what you said there, you can usually gauge the start of the scary movie season by about the time everybody starts putting pumpkin and everything. It's about the same time, People associate pumpkins and scary movies. It's a thing.
I'm okay with that correlation because I don't like pumpkin, and the only pumpkin thing I like are pumpkin seeds, like cooked pumpkin seeds.
Well, those are good too.
Right, but I don't actually like pumpkin itself. I don't like pumpkin spiced anything. I don't like pumpkin pie. And this year especially, I noticed that all the pumpkin spice shit was everywhere by like mid-August.
It's getting earlier, man.
It is, but you make a good point. If that starts to correlate, like if they start pushing that back and it's like July 4th and like all of a sudden, hey, July 5th, we got pumpkin spice. If that means that I get my scary movies starting July 5th, I can compartmentalize that. I can deal with that.
See, I'm in the boat where I'd take pumpkin spice and scary movies all year long. I'd be fine with both all year. Here's the thing. Pumpkin spice, it's a little overplayed for the time that it's around, but that's because it's only around a short time. That's why they're expanding. That's why they push it out, and they're like,
only around a short time.
Well, that's why it's expanding. It's because it got overplayed in that short time. You had to get it in all in that time, and you got overloaded on it. But when you just have it around when you want it, You know, it's always, if it was always there, you could just grab it whenever you actually felt like it, as opposed to being forced to, like, oh, it's that season. But I get why. You know, I mean, it's when pumpkins are good to harvest. It's squash season, folks.
You've heard it here first, folks. How pumpkin spice? Mike Bradley says, "Grab it when you want it."
Yeah,
That's the tagline.
Always.
The pumpkin industry can have that one for free.
Same with coffee. Any day.
All right, so we're going to start in mid-August. August 13th, we got a sequel to 2016's Don't Breathe, very creatively called Don't Breathe 2, with no subtitle. I mean, I don't know what you would have said, like, still breathing?
But no, that's the opposite of what you would
that.
say. You'd say, like, hold your breath, maybe. Keep holding, or, like, I don't know, drown. I got suffocation.
I think we got something here. We're gonna workshop that. The sequel to Don't Breathe was directed by Rodo Sayaguez. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but I am trying. He was a co-writer and co-producer of the first Don't Breathe, along with his production partner Fred Alvarez, who co-wrote with him and did direct the first movie. So they kind of swapped director roles here. The two of them both previously worked on the Evil Dead remake in 2013, and they both have upcoming story credits and producer credits on something we're going to talk about later in the show, which is a Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot, remake, whatever the words are now. We'll get to that later. Really, as far as I could tell, the only returning character for this sequel from Don't Breathe is Stephen Lang as the blind man. And Mike, you said you have not seen this sequel yet, but did you see the first
Yes.
Don't Breathe from 2016?
I did.
Okay, generally favorable or unfavorable view of it?
Neither. Kind of middle of the road. Like, it was okay. It was good enough. You know what I mean? It wasn't bad. It wasn't great, in my opinion. You know what I mean? That was kind of where I fell with it. Like, you know, it had a good premise, but it felt, I don't want to say boring, but, you know what I mean? Like, it had tense moments and then lots of boring. And then tense moments and lots of boring. That's the way I remember it. I don't remember, like, all the little details. At this point, it's been so long since I watched it. But I remember, you know, not having strong feelings about it, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yeah, I get that. I would say we saw it in theaters. We only saw it once. I think I was surprised at how much I liked it that time, but I haven't gone back and watched it since. And I don't know if I would feel like I think it has a little bit. The first one especially has a good rewatchability factor, I think. But yeah, I guess same thing. Like, it didn't set the world on fire, and it was more enjoyable than I was anticipating at the time I saw it, but it wasn't groundbreaking.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen Lang is entertaining one way or another. The guy is an intimidating grandpa. Like, I mean, that's the only way I can think to describe him. He's like the grandpa that's extremely stern, that you don't want to fuck with because he's going to get pissed. He's probably drunk. You know, like, he just looks like that kind of guy, like an ex-Marine that drinks a lot these days. You don't want to. He has that look to me, like, you know.
I'm with you.
My grandfather had that, so it fucks me up. Like, it. You know, this movie's actually scary to me for a different reason.
Oh, I gotcha. So so you didn't see this yet?
No.
Do you just not have an interest, or like if this was like, was it a COVID choice? If this was regular times, might you have had more interest?
I tend not to see as many horror movies in the theater, which I think I've stated before.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer to watch horror movies at home.
Okay.
I feel like, you know, at home in the dark, they have a better ambiance. The suspense and all that they try and go for a lot of the time doesn't hit me as much in the theater as it does at home.
Okay, fair.
So I try to watch more of them at home, and this one just is still like $20 or something to rent.
Yeah.
So it just, I'm just kind of waiting until I can pay $4 or whatever to watch it.
Okay, so it is potentially something that you want to get around to eventually.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not like you've written it off.
There's not a horror movie they make I won't watch. So in this case, this is probably much higher production quality. It looks like from the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like my notes for it, which I'll get to before I guess you get to yours, since yours will be more in depth. Is I said like this time it looks like they're trying to do a Daredevil meets John Wick kind of thing, which is awesome. I hope you've seen it. You can tell me. I hope there's some really awesome action sequences here that they play on, because I feel like they're setting those up, and I want to see them.
Gotcha. So we're like at our like about 2-minute warning for Don't Breathe. So I'll hit mine quickly. I would say yeah. They definitely probably punched up the action sequences in terms of like I feel in the first one things almost seemed very contained to a smaller area.
Yes.
Right? I mean, like, the whole thing basically takes place in the house, and it's like a thing happens in a room, and then something moves to another room later. This one plays with the space more, makes the space bigger. Right. The one thing that I will definitely say is I was unsure but kind of surprised that they did find a wedge for the story to, like, at first I thought, like, how do you sequelize this? Like, where do you go with it?
I thought that when I saw it too, that they were doing a second one. It was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Where do you go? So
yeah, and they found a way to do it without making you really care or worry that much about potential continuity problems, or like, well, you know, what was left unresolved? How did that get from A to B, etc. The one thing I will say, just in case you wouldn't pick up on it, but I want the listeners to hear this definitely. Brendan Sexton III plays the other lead role in this movie. Do you know who that is?
Were they in the trailer?
That maybe. I actually don't recall. I haven't. I actually watched the trailer in like 2 months.
No,
but
I have no fucking clue who Brendan
that actor
Sexton
is in it.
The third is.
Yes. Well, Brendan Sexton III is Warren from Empire Records. I don't know if that means anything to you, but to the few who might be listening who love Empire Records like I do.
It's been a long time since I saw Empire Records. So remind me, Warren. Like, it's been a long, like, it's probably been 10 years since I watched that movie. I love that movie, but it's not.
He's the younger kid who's the shoplifter that they catch, who comes back later to hold up the store.
Like, has he had other roles since then? Or is it
He has. No, he has. I've looked, and it's actually been in a few. He was in 3 Billboards in Ebbing, Missouri, which was like a couple years ago.
Yeah.
But like, if you look at his IMDb, like, the dude has worked steadily.
Okay. He's just never like a lead. He's just
no.
He's just there.
And when the movie started, and I'm looking at his face, I'm like, I know who that is. Who is that? Who is that? And it's Warren 26 years later.
You know, I can't remember the character's name, but when you said Warren, for some reason I was thinking something about Mary. And, like, was that guy's name? The guy, like, the baseball guy?
Now I'm doing what you just did, where it's been so long since I've seen that, I don't recall.
Same. Like, I feel like his name might have been Warren.
It might be.
But I don't know. But yeah, that's actually a crazy pull to find that this guy was from Empire Records as a kid.
And I'm looking at his face, and I'm like, I know that face. I know that. And I looked him up. I'm like, yep, that's freaking Warren. So
that's awesome.
If anybody would potentially be considering Don't Breathe too, and you might be on the fence, and you're an Empire Records fan, it is Warren in a lead role as a quasi bad guy, and it's pretty amazing to watch. So
that's definitely something that seems strange from the trailer, is that, like, I feel like they did that in the first movie too, but I can't remember exactly. It's that they played it as like morally ambiguous almost.
Yes, and that's, I think, the best way, and really the only way to play the blind man as a sequel, because you think about halfway through that they're trying to convert him to an anti-hero, and really by the end, at least I felt, because that was going to disappoint me, because I'm like, no, this is a bad dude.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, he had, like, in the first one, he had the girl chained up in the basement, right?
Yes.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
that's a bad guy.
He's
Period.
a bad guy. And I at least I feel that by the end of the second one, they kind of pull back from that and let you see, like, okay, he might have done a good thing in some way for this person in this sequel, but he's still the bad guy at heart. It was like,
that's good.
Who's the worst of two evils in this situation? It's the other people, but he's still the bad guy. But
that's good, because I was worried about that, because I was watching the trailer and I'm like, are they trying to play him like a fucking superhero? Like, the way that they played it,
right,
I was
and
like,
since
worried,
he's the only returning character, like, how else do you market that? How else do you set up the situation? Because otherwise, it just seems like the same thing. Like, oh, it's a home invasion, and he's blind, but he can do things like that.
he has a certain set of skills.
Yeah, exactly. That's how they had to sort of refocus the look of it. But yep. So that is Don't Breathe 2. We'll move on to our next. So the only reason I'm going to bring up this next movie, Mike, it's called Demonic. It apparently released in some theatrical sense on August the 20th. It bypassed me. I never heard of it until I was putting together material for this show.
Sure.
The reason I'm bringing it up is because I was shocked to find that it was written and directed by Neil Blomkamp.
Yeah. When I was watching the trailer, I saw that and I said, oh, wow.
Yes, and listeners, there is a trailer out there to look at. Does the Neil Blomkamp sound familiar? I hope it does to you. This is the creator, the writer-director of District 9, Elysium, Chappie, an Alien sequel movie that we will never get because Ridley Scott effed up his plans for the last couple of years. But I'm a pretty diehard Blomkamp fan. District 9, I think, is one of the best original movies I've ever seen in my life. So when I saw him like just do a straight out horror movie that's kind of like a possession, supernatural type thing, like that definitely caught my attention, and so I definitely stopped and looked at it.
You know, I honestly hadn't heard of it until you put it on the list. Same kind of thing. I watched this trailer and I said, "What the fuck is going on here?" And now the trailer pulled me in to the point where I'm intrigued enough that I'm definitely watching this very soon. Because they're you know, it's almost like some kind of mocap thing going on that they're doing for some, I guess, virtual reality type of situation. It looks like at the very start of the trailer, and then somehow demons get involved, and Catholicism somehow as well, because we have upside down crosses involved in the trailer a few times. I don't know what's going on, but I want to fucking find out. Like, it looks
it was such a
crazy
mix of elements that I was not expecting to see in a possession type of scary movie. Right there's I wrote down, my note was like, there's this like technology that they have that they try to connect a daughter and her mother into this like temporal simulation within both of their minds. But the look of it that they create is like there's I don't even know what to call it.
feedback.
Do you remember the movie A Scanner Darkly?
Yeah.
It kind of felt like it had like a shade of that, almost like animation over people.
Yeah,
look to it.
It had like the feedback look, like
Yes,
the digital feedback that just is like, oh, yeah. I mean, like, I know you don't game as much, but that to me would like look like a laggy online video game.
Oh, okay.
You know, like with online lag, it's like, oh, that's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, like that. Like that's the aesthetic that they create when they go into this temporal world that they're connected in. But then at some point they also introduce the notion of like soldier priests into this, and I'm like, holy shit, there's all kinds of stuff happening here. I'm really interested.
Yeah, I had no idea what it was, but I'm hooked. I want to watch it now.
Yeah. I think one of this is one that I could only find available, I think, on some streaming platforms.
Yeah.
At this point, I think if you go to your Amazon, your Vudu, those types of things, I think it's like a $6 or $7 rental right now. But if
standard for like IFC type stuff.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Yeah, it's an IFC film. If you're a Blomkamp fan, if you like the science fiction type of stuff he's done before, and you also like horror movies at all, I think the mesh of these two could be just interesting. Like, I'm not sure whether it's going to be good or not, but I know it's going to be interesting.
Yes, I agree.
So yeah, take a look at that. Any closing remarks for Demonic?
No.
Cool. Moving along, we have 3 more on the list tonight that are already theatrically released. Before we get to those that are future upcoming stuff. The first of the last 3 is a movie called The Night House, which also released on August the 20th. The writing team of Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski, who are both working on a Hellraiser remake currently. And this was and that will also be directed by David Bruckner, who directed this movie, The Night House. Of note, the only thing I could really find of Bruckner to mention is he's listed as a director on one segment of the first VHS movie.
Okay.
And he has some
does
others.
Does it say which one?
It did, but I don't have that handy.
Okay, that's fine. I was going to say, some of those were really good, and some of them weren't in the first VHS. That's
That is very true.
That's okay.
That is true. But yeah, if you're familiar with the VHS films, it's the first one, and he directs one of the segments in there. So that writing team, directing team, is going to be working on the Hellraiser remake, and they are bringing you The Night House. This stars Rebecca Hall of Godzilla vs. Kong, Iron Man 3, The Gift, The Town, The Prestige fame. Sarah Goldberg, who, from what I can tell, for all intents and purposes, is a fairly newcomer. And someone else that I wanted to make note of, Vondi Curtis Hall, who listeners of this show may know as Ben Urich from the season 1 of Netflix's Daredevil. And I also know him as the beverage vendor from Coming to America, who recognizes Akeem as he's standing in line for the bathroom and falls to his knees, bowing, and then comes back and insists to get his picture taken with him.
Is this the original Coming to America or the Coming
Yes.
to America?
Nope, Coming to America,
Okay.
1988.
It's so hard to verbally distinguish between those two.
That is true. That is true. I'm glad you called that out. So as far as I can tell, this is a story where Rebecca Hall has a recently deceased husband, and there is a haunted house type of plot involved. Looks rather intense to me, actually. And so something like this could either be kind of cookie cutter and fall flat, or it could, who knows? It could be like an adrenaline rush the whole time. Mike, have you seen this?
No, I've not seen it, but there's a couple things that stand out for me. One of those is that I believe Rebecca Hall is extremely underrated as an actress.
Mm-hmm.
I think she should be getting a lot more top-end work. And seeing her in something like this says to me that, one, she always delivers a really solid performance in whatever she does. So I'm confident in spending a few dollars to watch this because I know she's at least going to be good. And going from there, it looks like a head trip.
Okay.
To me, this looks like a film that's going to fuck with your head and your sense of what the hell is actually happening. And it's going to be one of those films that, something's going to happen in the last 10 minutes that changes everything. I have that sense about it. There's going to be that thing, whatever the hell it is, in the last 10 minutes that's just going to turn the whole thing on its head.
I agree. And from what I can tell, it doesn't look like it's going to be a slow burn either. At least the way they cut the trailer, it seems like once you get into it, after the first 15-ish minutes, maybe 20, it feels like the second, the whole second and third acts are going to be pretty intense.
I mean, the
from
trailer
there to
is
the
intense.
end. Yeah.
Every bit of that shows this is. I think it shows you a good progression through the film of the things that are going to happen in general, but it's keeping hidden. Obviously the major plot points that are going to affect the outcome, which is it's where these movies either fall flat or do really well. Is how they you start with this really good premise that they have with this like upside down version of the house, basically backwards version or whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
How do they play that into making sense? Some movies, horror movies are known for this, where they have these really good premises and then they just take an absolute shit in the last 10 minutes of the movie because they have no idea how to end it.
Yeah, good point.
And if you can turn that into a good ending, you have an excellent film. If you can't, you don't. So I'm very interested to see where this falls.
Agreed. We had the opportunity to maybe go see this and Malignant together, which we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes.
Mm-hmm.
At the drive-in, they were paired together at the a Pittsburgh area drive-in this weekend, and we decided to stay home and watch Malignant and some other bad horror movies just at home.
Thanksgiving, did that turn up?
No. It's way too early in the season for that.
Oh, okay, not that bad though either. Not...
Oh no. But yeah, I'm on the one hand, after rewatching the trailer in preparation for today, I'm kind of sad that we didn't go, because like at this point, I don't know if we're gonna get out anywhere before it's out of theaters.
Yeah, these usually get a short run.
Mm-hmm. And it's already been out at this point. We're recording this on September 20th, so it's already been out for a month.
Yeah,
and so
probably got
schedules
2
are
weeks
squeezed even more so now than before. But yeah, I mean, for me, it sounds like for yourself as well. Hopefully, I think sounds like we're both adding it to the to watch list.
I guess this is another one that's been... I remember seeing the advertising for this for the first time a long time ago and being like, oh, I definitely want to watch that. And then it was something that was like delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, just like everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But I can remember over a year ago seeing, I guess, the same trailer I watched today in preparation for the show. It, like, I would guess over a year ago when I first saw the trailer. So
Gotcha.
It's something that has had my interest for a while.
I see. So it's finally, no pun intended, seen the light of day. And so if you're interested in this stuff, make sure you get out and catch it or look for it on digital when it is available. So hitting our next one, I think we might spend an extra minute or two on this. Our next entry is a very much anticipated, what I thought going in was a reboot, but turned out to be a direct spiritual sequel.
Same.
This is Candyman. The Jordan Peele produced Candyman update was released on August the 27th, and just some quick production notes about this. It was originally, again, this was a COVID delay. This was originally supposed to be out in, I think, June of 2020 originally, and it got pushed, and finally, 14 months later, we get it. As I said, it was produced by Jordan Peele of, Get Out and Us and Key and Peele fame. But it was written by himself, Win Rosenfeld, and director Nia DaCosta. DaCosta, the only thing I could see really before this that was a feature or anything of note was she wrote and directed a film called Little Woods in 2018, but that I believe has Tessa Thompson and I'm forgetting Lily James. This movie, upon its release, it's both, I think, something to celebrate as well as giving us the perspective of like, really, that's kind of terrible. The opening weekend of Candyman has given, at least I guess you could say, U.S. box office for the very first time, a film directed by a black woman opened at number 1.
Oh, okay.
For the very first time. Which is obviously kudos to her. But again, like, really? Took this long? That sucks. But, for the acclaim that I think it's getting, I haven't really heard a lot of bad reviews about this.
Right.
And it was around the time that the film was originally supposed to get released in the summer of 2020 that news was coming out that Marvel Studios was talking to Nia DaCosta about directing a project, and a few months later that got confirmed over the winter of 2020 and 2021 that she will be, or is, directing the upcoming Captain Marvel sequel called The Marvels, which we should get in November of 2022. So she has a springboard to her career right now, and you know what, good for her, because after seeing this, I think she deserves it. Let's talk about cast really quickly, and then we'll dive into our thoughts. Yahya Abdul Mateen II, who a lot of people will know as Black Manta from Aquaman, and as Dr. Manhattan from HBO's Watchmen. Teyonah Parris, who has a much longer resume than I realized, but who we know more recently from WandaVision as the current grown-up Monica Rambeau, who will be rejoining Nia in The Marvels coming up. Nathan Stewart Jarrett, who plays Teyonah's brother in the film. Coleman Domingo, and I'm mentioning Vanessa Williams because no, it's not that Vanessa Williams, but it is another actress named Vanessa Williams who is the only actor or actress in a on-screen capacity to come back from the original Candyman. I'd have to look at the year again. I think the original Candyman was like 1991, 1992.
Something like that.
So we're going on nearly 30 years, and she comes back reprising the same role. So that is our cast, and as I said, this ended up being a direct sequel to the original. So this is one of those projects similar to Halloween that we're going to talk about, where they just assume, you know, they're ignoring any sequels that were made. Candyman 2, Candyman 3 that were made in the 90s. This ignores those storylines.
Did it ignore 2?
They
have her come out of the fire.
Everything that I've seen written about it kind of claims that that's how it's following.
I'm just saying, like, they show the image that you get at the start of Candyman 2 of her with, like, the burned scalp. You see that image.
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
So, like, that's what threw me off as to whether or not they were, like... Because the rest of the story kind of ignores it, but they give you that imagery of her in the way they made her look in Candyman 2 as the Candy Woman. I don't know what to
phrase it. Yeah, what the correct moniker is. I guess that's kind of arguable. I think the main through lines is assuming that anything that is depicted in the sequels, the original sequels, is irrelevant.
That's fair. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So yeah, and it sounded like you were not prepared for that either. Like I said, I thought this was a complete remake.
I was thinking the same thing. And I guess my thoughts on it in general. One, you talked about the cast. Yahya Abdul Mateen. I need to see this guy in more. He is fucking fantastic in everything he's been in. Like, even in Aquaman, he's wearing this fucking stupid suit that they put him in. And he still manages to make the character work, you know?
Yeah.
But here, he kills it again. Like, his work in this movie, I think, you know, I'm not somebody that's going to determine who gets an Oscar, but I feel like his work in this movie is worthy of a nomination, at the very least.
Okay.
His descent from, you know, a normal, everyday, struggling artist into what it becomes is incredibly well done. He portrays it perfectly. But as you said, with the whole, like, it being actually a sequel to the original thing, I think there's a couple, like, comments I would have. I think this is a fantastic film. You know, I think this is a film that is worthy of note, that is... I think it'll get some awards somewhere, because it deserves them. But as a horror film, and as... I guess there's a couple different things that happen here for me, and it comes back to my ideas about Jordan Peele's movies, where I feel like Get Out and this movie fall into the same category of really goddamn good movies. that never scared me.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
These are excellent movies, and they're in the horror genre, but they don't. I don't know. The horror never builds up. Us, however, had the suspense and all that going 100% for it. Now, I understand this also is not a Jordan Peele directed film.
Right.
Which his association with it, though, as a producer, adds a certain expectation.
And a co-writer.
Right.
Yep.
It adds that expectation that I feel like it choosing to be a sequel as opposed to a reboot hampered the creativity that we know him for. Because he had to exist within a mythos that already existed.
Sure, yeah.
You know, so I feel like the creativity was there, and he used what he had to make it work, but he had to work with what already existed. Which, no offense to the original Candyman, awesome horror movie, the writing was very lackluster. You know, I mean, it was like, oh, this happened and blah, blah. Okay, now you say his name and you die. I feel like that was just mashed together ideas that wound up being Candyman. They had the idea of like Bloody Mary meets, you know, so many different ideas just all in one.
Well, when Sarah and I had never seen the sequels, the original sequels, so
I saw 2. I've still never seen 3.
Same. We actually did the exact same thing in the last couple weeks. But in revisiting the first 2, I learned something I didn't know previously, which is Candyman is based off a Clive Barker short story.
Yes.
So, I've never read it, so I don't know how much of the specifics are already laid out in his story, and then how much they really expanded out to make the full story or not. I feel I'll try to make this succinct. Is I appreciate the storytelling, like the return to a certain type of storytelling that Jordan Peele and his production company are trying to do, which is, and this is going to sound counterproductive because this is a sequel to something existing, but in a way, I don't get the sense that like Get Out was ever meant to be sequelized. Same with Us.
Right.
And to a certain extent, this. Even though this piggybacks on something that already existed. Like, I like the idea.
Oh, see, I think this is.
Well, at the
I think we see a sequel to this.
While it could be, I like that this is a standalone movie, though.
It stands on its own. Absolutely.
You could pick up something else and run with it, given the new things and the new ideas that they introduced. But not every single thing that they're producing is approached to be IP.
Right. And that's a good thing
movie.
Because
it's
they're not
a story.
Right. They're not producing it that way.
Yes,
and that's a good
appreciate
thing.
that.
However, in this case, I think we could see a much more horror-driven sequel with Yahya Abdul-Mateen reprising his role as the Candyman in a much more malevolent state.
I think you could,
and
if
I
they
think
wanted
that
to
would
go
be
that
cool.
way, because it could, and I if they happen to, I like the idea that they introduced where the quote Candyman kept getting, I'll call it, reincarnated into the consciousness as a result of societal conditions.
Right.
In a way, right? So there's always an impetus. There's a catalyst existing in social circumstances that, are social injustice or an act of violence or things occurring in neighborhoods that
it creates the Candyman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And it's almost like and they're not saying that the original Candyman story and source didn't happen, but it is a way for that force to reinvent itself in another. It's not always now, like I like the spin that they did where it's not always the character that Tony Todd plays specifically continuing to rise from the dead and come back and do things. It's them manifesting through these other figures every couple of decades because of things happening
right
in their sliver of the world.
and
to that end, I think you could have Yahya do it again because he is, quote, the current Candyman, that could be brought on by yet another thing happening.
Well, see,
in
like
a neighborhood, in a town.
I'd love to see Jordan Peele, in a writing sense, take on the task of finding a way that the Candyman goes off the rails. So, currently the Candyman's there, and we see the way the Candyman works, fighting injustice. Fighting, killing the people that deserve it for doing the things that they did.
Right.
Find a way that the Candyman loses focus.
Okay.
Something that Jordan Peele could do. Like, I'm not saying I could do it, but I'm saying, like, find a way that all of a sudden the people you think should be safe. Because, like, that would be the problem with doing a sequel from here, is we already know the people he's going to go after.
True.
And you're prepared for it, you're ready for it, you know it's going to happen. But if there's a reason that the Candyman goes against that, if there's something that happens that causes a deviation, and then everybody's on the menu.
I like it. Okay, I can see
it. And that's where I think, like, the horror element. And I think what I said to Amy right after we watched this movie was that I wish they had got to the point that his character had become the Candyman halfway through the film. And
or,
then
partially, or I wish it was like 15 minutes longer.
Yeah, let some other shit happen with him as the Candyman. Like, I wanted to see him play the Candyman for more than just that final scene.
Yeah, like, I feel like his descent to there took up most of the time.
Yes.
And they either could have...
It could have been quicker.
It could have been quicker, or it could have been... I don't know. I get what you're saying.
Give him more to do as the character he becomes.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. And like, I'll say this 100 times. Not literally, but the little homage they paid to Tony Todd as he's becoming the Candyman, that was just like, fucking A, man. Like,
I loved how they closed that. And I had to look it up. It looks... At first, I thought it was a complete CGI.
No, he's there. He's listening to the credits.
Yes, and they did de-age him.
Well, yeah,
do that, and that's why I initially thought,
it's been 30 years.
Did they completely CGI him in there? But yes, I loved that solidified the idea that he and what he represented was the driving force behind the thing that can have the power, if you just call it that, power of the Candyman.
Yeah.
In everybody who quote needs to have it at certain points.
Right. And I also like the way they played the Candyman they set up in the beginning as the creepy dude handing candy to kids.
Yes.
Like, that was like, oh man. But that that was, I guess, one of the things that made me question things, like this creepy dude handing candy to kids. He kind of became like a folk hero out of it. And I'm like, he was still a creepy dude handing candy to kids.
It was a different time. It was more innocent. Kind of.
Was it, though? I feel like they kind of played, like, I'm saying, like, the portrayal of that person. I don't think they ever gave him a name. They just called him the Candyman. And that's why we know him today as the Candyman or whatever. But I feel like the portrayal of that person was as a creepy possible child molester.
Possibly, and
like, I feel like that's the way they portrayed
it. I think they played it ambiguously, so
that the cops that killed him without a meaning were wrong.
Right, and you're wondering, was there, even if that's not what was happening in the moment, does that mess with my moral ambiguity? Because I can't automatically compartmentalize that as, well, he didn't do anything wrong this time, but I quote, I know he did other bad things, so I'm not going to feel as bad.
And
they muddied the waters.
Maybe that's the creativity part of it that Peele had an influence on, is making you think that. Because it's like, man, he definitely looks like the type of guy that would do that shit.
Right.
You
But
know,
since
like
it's
he
not
gets that,
explicit,
he gets the
yeah.
audience reaction to be like, man. And then it's like, well, he still didn't deserve to die.
Yeah, agreed.
So it works in that way.
Well, we've gushed about Candyman for quite a while,
Absolutely.
but I would say it's probably definitely a recommendation of us both.
One of the highest rated horror movies you're going to see in a long time, according to a lot of the critics and websites out there. It is extremely good.
There's probably a good chance you would enjoy it too. So it is still out in theaters, but it might not be for much longer. But probably by Thanksgiving, it should be available digital and DVD, I would imagine.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. All right, kicking it down the road. Let's move on. So the last of the list that we're going to talk about that is currently already theatrically available is nearly brand new. It is Malignant, released both in theaters and, as Brian likes to say, day and date on HBO Max. Released on September the 10th.
I don't credit him with saying that. That's not something that he created.
I
He
just said
did not invent the day and date.
I said he likes to say it, did not
He
say
says
he
it.
invented
Okay,
it.
that's fine.
Although, again, I always bring up Gene Simmons and his trademarking the $ satchel bag. So who knows what you can copyright nowadays?
Copyright it, Brian. Do it.
Yep.
Day and date. Make it a thing. You're only allowed to say it if you pay Brian.
File the paperwork. So this is written by Akela Cooper, who is a writer on TV shows Grimm, The 100, Netflix's Luke Cage, and the screenwriter for the film Hellfest, which actually Sarah and I think enjoyed. And this is directed by James Wan. If you don't know who James Wan is, I don't know how to help you.
Why are you listening to this?
Especially this episode.
Yeah, this episode.
One of the co-creators and co-writer-directors of the Saw franchise, Insidious franchise, the Conjuring franchise. As much as you wouldn't even think of it, he directed one of the Fast and Furious movies, DC's Aquaman and its coming sequel. He's freaking James Wan.
James Wan can make movies.
Yeah,
and
yes,
if you watch
very
horror
much
in the last 20 years,
and he's shown himself to be very, very eclectic and diverse.
Yes.
Malignant stars Annabelle Wallis, who you may know from the Annabelle movies, from the Mummy remake, and from one of my favorite movies I know of 2018, especially Tag.
Yes, Tag.
Freaking love that movie.
Yeah, I gotta watch that again sometime soon. That's a good one.
I think we also have what I'm going to call another kind of newcomer, Maddie Hassan, George Young, and Nicole Brianna White, who I'm going to call out because she is a character actor who has, again, a long resume going back to Encino Man. And I had to confirm this one. If you are a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air fan and you are familiar with the episode where the rich girl who wants to get popular buys Will all the gifts before dumping him and taking everything back, that is her.
I pieced that together in my head from Encino Man in that episode, and I'm like,
Yep, she's one of the detectives in Malignant. So I think Mike and I, this is the last of them that both of us have been able to see already.
Yes.
I caught it on HBO Max. I believe you did as well, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, it's there. It's free.
So
well, free.
This was. I mean, we'll try to be, again, succinct because we went a bit of time on Candyman, but what are your thoughts? There's parts of this that threw me off so much.
Okay, so there's a couple things I would want to say. I think this is a decent body horror / slasher movie.
Okay.
It's decent.
Mm-hmm.
The twist and all that was predictable, but still good and creepy and gross as fuck.
Agreed.
All that worked. I guess the biggest thing I would say about it, the first third of this movie had some of the best camera work I've ever seen in a horror movie.
Okay.
And that went away. It stopped. So they panned. So for those of you that haven't seen it, there's camera work in one of the early scenes in the movie where our Annabelle, what's her last name? Wallace is being chased through a house on multiple floors, and the camera is actually looking at the floor plan of the house from above, and it's playing this fucking amazing camera angle on a horror film.
Yes.
And it does, and they play all these really cool camera angles and tricks in the first third of the film, and then they stop and they don't show up again. And that pissed me off so much. I'm watching the film, like, are they going to do it again? Are they going to do it again? And they never did it again. And it was like, you did this really cool, you had this amazing idea, and it worked so well early on, and you never went back to it.
It looked really cool. Like, listeners, it's almost like they took the roof off the house and looked straight down. And so you could see from room to room as they moved, and the wall separation and everything. It was really cool.
And that's something horror never does, is show you everything.
Yeah.
There's a reason it doesn't do it, but it worked here when they did it, in spite of that reason they don't do it.
Mm-hmm. And maybe that was part of it, that they thought, like, just that technique for the sequence that they used it for was the way that they could make it effective, and you know, implementing it in other ways wouldn't have, you know, they wouldn't have pulled it off as well.
I mean, you have that theory, and you have my theory that it was too expensive to do it over and over again and have it happen more than that in the film. But nonetheless, for that beginning of the movie, I was extremely impressed with what they were doing. And then you get to the later in the movie and the slasher part of it, where, like, the movie has kind of a mystery to it early on as to what the hell's happening, and then once that is revealed, it turns more into a slasher, into just a straight, like, there's this thing that's killing people randomly. It doesn't give a shit who it's killing. It just kills. And it was, like, the visuals were fucking cool throughout this whole movie. It, like...
Agreed.
I don't know how to describe it. You just have to watch it.
Yeah.
Because I'd say, like, a backwards person, but that doesn't really describe what the hell's happening.
No,
I don't know
really.
how to really say it.
No, yeah, no, I'm with you. And one really cool thing that I learned is I still have never been to Seattle in real life. But we looked it up, and in this film, a very short part of it shows that there is apparently Seattle, if this is real.
Oh, yeah.
Was in somewhere in the past, decades ago, I guess experienced chronic extreme flooding. So city planners eventually started building on top of the existing buildings. So, like, the first story or two of many old buildings of the 1900s are under, like, road level. But to the point where, like, shop front windows and things are still there. And we looked it up, like, these, like, underground city tours are a real thing. And it's not even like you have to go searching hard for them and they're like urban myths or whatever. Like, they exist. I did not ever hear this, but the moment that we ever get to Seattle, if I do, like, we're definitely putting that on the list. It looks cool as hell.
Yeah, that's the same as, like, the catacombs in France. Like,
I'm
there if I get the opportunity. I don't know that I'll ever be in France and Paris, but either one. I'll definitely be down there. And I guess file that under another thing in this movie I wish they did more with. Because it was a little bit set in there, but I feel like they didn't do as much with it as I'd hoped. It was like, what?
Okay.
2 major scenes happen there, and then the rest of the movie's above ground.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, if you're starting a basis of something there, it seems like it could be a big setup to play a bigger role later.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for. But
yeah,
it's okay, though. It was still good.
Yeah,
that was my general thoughts on the movie. It was good, but it wasn't great.
Yeah, I'm there on that. But Malignant is out. It'll probably be on HBO Max if you are a subscriber until probably about it's like 30 days. So
yeah, they do.
October
30,
9th,
31.
October 10th should be available there, and it is also out in theaters now.
Yep.
Moving on. So this is going to be probably the strangest that we're going to talk about, and I don't think there's going to be a whole lot to say.
Not even.
So we're just going to give you the information.
Yeah, it's not even close.
This is a movie. This is a movie called Lamb. It releases October the 8th, apparently. I am bringing it up because one of my favorite actresses is in it, and we'll get to her in a second. It is it's a foreign language film. It appears to be either Icelandic or Nordic film, but it has already won a prize for the creators at the Cannes Film Festival. These are all Icelandic or Nordic names. I'm going to butcher them all, but they're so fun to say as an idiot American that I'm going to go through all of them real quick.
That's amazing. Ix.
Yeah. It was co-written by a man named Sjorn, whose real name is Sigurjón Sigurdsson. He is a frequent collaborator of Bjork and her 80s band, the Sugar Cubes.
Interesting.
Apart from also being apparently like a novelist, a poet, he's apparently a big deal internationally, but we're just not as familiar with him here.
Okay.
He co-wrote this with director Valdemir Johansson, and the film stars Noomi Rapace.
Yes.
She is best known probably as the lead of Lisbeth Salander from the European Swedish versions of the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo trilogy movies. American audiences might know her from Sherlock Holmes' Game of Shadows with Robert Downey Jr. From 2011. She also starred in several Netflix movies, including what was the one I saw a few years ago? I think it's called What Happened to Monday.
I would also note that she is the lead actress in Prometheus.
Ah, god damn it! Yes, thank you.
I was thinking
how did I
American
miss that?
audiences would know her best from that because she's kind of a side thing. But yes, Prometheus. She is the lead
You are
actress.
right. Oh, I'm such a jackass. Yes. That is her. Yes. I've come to really dig her ever since seeing the Dragon Tattoo movies, and I've kind of
She's
followed her.
awesome.
So, this strikes me. Oh, real quick, I'm gonna name the other actors in this, like all of them, only because again they're fun to say. But there's apparently only 4 characters in this entire movie, which also makes me like, whoa, really? Okay.
Is one of them back?
Yeah, along with the lambs. Hilmar Snæar Gudnason, Bjorn, because of course there's a Bjorn.
Why wouldn't there be a Bjorn?
Hlynur Haraldsson, Ingvar Sigurdsson, and Esther Beebe.
Well, at least you saved the easy one for last.
Exactly. So those are your 5 characters in this movie, and I don't know about you, Mike, but from the trailer, it looks like it could possibly be really freakishly weird and disturbing, but also kind of reminded me of the trailers that I first saw for like Hereditary or Midsommar. Like those kinds of horror movies, it gave me that sort of vibe. What did you get from it?
I have 2 notes that I wrote down from the trailer.
Okay.
The first is Noomi Rapace. I'm in. The second is, what the fuck is this movie?
I agree. So the only other information I wrote
I
down
don't know
was,
what else to say about it.
Like there's a small graveyard that is included in the opening of the trailer, and I'm wondering like, okay, did the couple lose a child or a relative? Because then it also seems like they maybe start to treat a newborn lamb as like an infant. Or something a little bit like a semi-human. And then I just wrote, so like if that's true, then like weird shit ensues. That's all I got. So this could either be really off-putting or just like totally miss the mark, or it could be really freaking weird but cool.
I think it's going to be all of those things. And I feel like it's going to be like Midsommar. Like I went into Midsommar thinking like, yeah, this is going to be fucking weird. And it was fucking weird. But it was
so
fucking good too. You know what I mean?
Like it disappoint on the yes, it's weird.
Yeah, like I feel like it's gonna hit all those notes. I don't know if it'll be as good as Midsommar. I hope it is because that was really good. But man, I mean, honestly, the trailer's like a mushroom trip. Like it's
yes.
like you just what the hell? Like there's a lamb in a little like tuxedo walking around, being held like a baby.
It
looks like it's talking
on 2 legs at one point. Like
yeah,
being
like
held by the hand, and it's in like clothes.
Yeah. It's very, very what the hell is going on here kind of shit, and somebody was definitely on drugs.
So or several people's.
Or so several drugs.
This is true. This is probably not going to get an American theatrical release, but perhaps if you, again, keep your eye on the internet, it might be available sometime in about early to mid-October. So final thoughts on Lamb.
Yep. I mean, I'm gonna
Set your
watch
piece.
it. I don't know what's gonna happen, but
So hitting off of there, so I think we are coming to maybe the next of sort of the marquee films on the list that we'll try to get through as quickly as we can, or at least succinctly as we can. The word I keep using and really failing at. But on October 15th, we will finally get the sequel to 2018's Halloween reboot, Halloween Kills. This was supposed to be released in October of 2020. I want to say in October of 2019, the two following Halloween sequels were announced for 2020 and 2021. Those are now obviously going to be, it looks like 2021 and 22. So of all the first world things that happened out of COVID, this was one of the more like entertainment ones that really hit me, that I was most sad about when we lost this for an entire year. But David Gordon Green returns to direct. He, along with Danny McBride and Scott Teems, are your returning writers. We again are getting Jamie Lee Curtis back, Judy Greer, Andy Matichak. This is the cool part, I think, of this chapter. Kyle Richards, maybe it is Kylie, but it's spelled Kyle, who played Lindsay in the original 1978 film as like a 6-year-old, is coming back to reprise that role in this film. And then we also get Anthony Michael Hall playing the role. Oh shit, what is that kid's name? Oh, I'm blanking now. He is playing the kid who is the other little boy in that film.
oh, okay, I know. Yeah.
He is taking on that role.
Is Paul Rudd coming back yet?
Oh, you know what? We were just talking about this recently, and Sarah found something that said, like, it was, some articles, power ranking of the movies and whatnot, and Halloween 6 with Paul Rudd was listed as the worst.
Yeah, but you know what? The awesome thing about getting Paul Rudd back for this movie is he could play the character at the same age.
That is true. And sorry, Anthony Michael Hall is playing Tommy. Tommy is the little boy that Laurie Strode is babysitting in the first Halloween. So I think that is extremely cool. If you've seen both, or at least the most recent trailer for this, I'm not sure, but it looks brutal as hell. And all I can say is, if they are not ruining the body count for us, because I didn't mean to see it, but I accidentally did. The most recent trailer they just put out for this has Michael killing about every single person he encounters. Yeah. Like in the trailer alone, there are probably 12 kills. And unless they are showing us everything and spoiling all of that, that means that there's even more.
I hope not. Yeah, like I hope they're not doing
happens.
that.
Like
I feel like that's going to be the spree to start the movie.
It may. It just
like
I don't know what to expect from this.
Here's the thing. There's a couple things. One, of course, it's Halloween. I fucking love it. I can't wait to get back in the theater and see this movie. I'll probably watch it at home and then still end up in the theater for it.
Okay.
It's something where I'd like, if it's good, I'll probably watch it at home first, and then if it's good enough, I'll be like, yeah, let's go see it in the theater too, because why not?
Okay.
But because it's, I don't know, you didn't say that, but it's going to be on Peacock Plus or whatever the premium version of Peacock is that you can get. You'll be able to watch this October 1st. So that's...
Oh, even prior to release?
That's what it said, I believe, was October 1st on Peacock.
Okay.
I'll have to double check that.
Yeah.
I'll double check that right now. Let me... Because I feel like I saw it.
While you were checking that, I will offer one more casting piece that I forgot about. Marion... I'm
15th.
sorry, Nancy...
Sorry, I was wrong. Go ahead.
Well, real quick. So, Nancy Stevens, who plays the nurse, Marion, in the original Halloween and its sequel Halloween 2, which takes place mostly at the hospital, and then who has a very short cameo in Halloween H2O from 1998, she is also returning in Halloween Kills as reprising her role.
That's awesome.
42 years later, 43 years later. That's amazing. So I'm sorry. And so what was the date that you found?
The 15th. The 15th.
Okay,
that's
15th.
what it's. I feel like I saw like October 1st somewhere for it, but I'm gonna have to research that more later.
Okay.
Figure out where I saw that, or if it was just something I saw that maybe they pulled back on. But I feel like they announced they were trying to I felt like they were trying to push it 2 weeks earlier onto Peacock Premium. They may have had to pull back on that because of legal whatever. But I feel like I saw that maybe to push people to get Peacock or something. They might have been doing that. I don't know, but I'm gonna have to look into it now because I'm almost certain I saw it that way, that it was gonna be early on Peacock, which is why I said it the way I did. Like, I'm gonna watch it on Peacock and then go to the theater because I'm not gonna be able to sit there with it for 2 weeks.
Oh no, not at all. We will unfortunately, I mean, not unfortunately, again, first world problem, but we will be on vacation. We will be actually in Ireland that when it comes out. So we're going to have to try to get back to a theater as soon as we can here because we don't want to spend like...
I wonder if you could catch like a
Ireland
Gaelic language version.
Oh, God. Like an overdub?
Yeah, like Celtic or Gaelic. See if you can get it over there.
If they have one, we will try to make a point to see it while we're there. That's the only way I'm going to spend Ireland time in a movie theater. But
it would be a good use of Ireland. You would remember that for the rest of your life.
I very much would. So I actually don't have much else to say about this, just because I think it speaks for itself, and I can't wait.
The only other note I have on it is, what you see in the trailer is the very reason I was pissed about the first movie's story. Is, how they set Laurie up to be ready to make sure he's dead and all that, and I'm gonna kill him for good this time, and he's gonna be gone, and then she leaves him without seeing him physically fucking dead, and she leaves the scene. And I'm like, I get they want to make sequels, but you didn't have to set her up to be like, oh well, he's burning, he'll probably be dead.
Yeah.
So...
Well, we will see. And I mean, we have another one. I mean, spoilers. We have another one coming after this. So I don't think we're going to have a resolution or, a finale.
Maybe we get a successor.
At the end of Halloween Kills. So
maybe there's a successor to Michael Myers that happens in this film that, maybe somebody becomes the next... Well, I guess you can't be the next Michael Myers, because it's like, that's the thing with Halloween, is the killer doesn't have a name like Leatherface where you can take up the mantle. You can take up the mask, but you can't really take up the mantle of Michael Myers.
Yeah, I think definitely Halloween Kills is going to be top of the list for so many of us, and I can't wait. So before we gush any more and get fixated too much, we're going to scoot on. The next one, I'm going to give you some background details real quick, and then I'm just going to let Mike off the leash, because I think he's chomping to talk about this one. On October the 29th, we will finally get a movie called Antlers. And in a moment, you'll understand why I say finally. The movie is directed by Scott Cooper, who wrote and directed Crazy Heart, Out of the Furnace, shot in Pittsburgh. Yay! Black Mass, and Hostels. So he has also worked with Christian Bale a few times. Antlers is written by Cooper, Henry Chison, Nick Antosco, and it is based on Antosco's short story called The Quiet Boy. And, interestingly, will be produced in part by Guillermo del Toro. The film stars Kerry Russell, Jesse Plemons, Graham Greene, Rory Cochrane, another Empire Records reference. He was Lucas. And I believe the scary little boy in this one will be played by Jeremy Thomas. So there is your creative team. Mike, take it away.
So Josh is throwing this to me at this point because if you go back to January of 2020, we recorded our most anticipated movies for 2020 list episode, which unfortunately most of those movies did not ever see theaters. Even still to this day, a lot of them have not seen theaters. This movie appeared at number 6 on my list at that time. Guillermo del Toro's involvement caught my attention. The trailer confirmed that I should be interested in this movie. We've been waiting, it feels like forever, because this is the type of fucked up, weird shit horror movie that I love. And Guillermo del Toro, which we're going to talk about him again later.
Spoilers.
He delivers on this stuff. There is a reason why he is known. You know his name. I know his name. Everybody knows his fucking name for a reason. If you don't, Hellboy, Pan's Labyrinth, the good Hellboy. Let me be clear about that. Not as sad as it is, David Harbour, man, I love you, but that movie sucked. You know Guillermo del Toro for what he is known for, which is creepy, weird shit. And he does it better than anybody else, in my personal opinion. And this is a movie that, from what I can tell, is going to be centered around the myth of the Wendigo. And I don't recall any other decently budgeted movie ever even attempting this. Because it's such a fucked up myth when you get down to what the myth really is. Marvel Comics did it a long time ago.
Oh?
They did. Believe it or not, that was the very first issue that Wolverine appeared in. Was an issue about the Hulk and Wendigo. And that was The Incredible Hulk number 180. Wolverine appears on the last panel after a fight between the Hulk and Wendigo in the Canadian wilderness. And then the first official big appearance and all that, the iconic covers, Incredible Hulk 181. Their take on the Wendigo is almost like a Yeti. It's a very different, abominable snowman kind of thing. This is a very different take on it, very more literal, I believe, to the mythology take, as opposed to what Marvel did. Because, it's Marvel Comics. It wasn't going to be what this is. This looks creepy. This looks fucked up. This looks amazing. I cannot wait for this movie. And I mean, there's not a whole lot more to say. Watch the trailer and be ready, because this is gonna fuck with your head. Like, this is gonna be fucked up, and it's gonna be good. So that I don't really, like I said, I don't want to gush about it for too long, especially because we got Edgar Wright coming up here and more things that I'm gonna want to talk about. So yeah,
I think you covered just about anything I would mention. I agree. The trailer is very intriguing. I think it'll either turn you off completely, or it will, have the effect that it has had on Mike and just have you absolutely, cannot wait for it. I'm bummed for you that was, bumped out for like a year and a half.
Be bummed for the world, man.
Of
not
course.
even just for that. Like, it shit happens.
Yeah.
At this point, it's just whatever.
I'm glad that it is going to be available for you soon.
How do you feel? Like, where are you at with it, though?
I mean, it didn't, it didn't have sort of the enthusiastic inception into me that it apparently has to you, but it definitely, my interest has peaked very, very much. Like, I got to know more about what's happening.
Did you see the similar movie that was on Netflix?
I did not.
What was that movie called? It was a similar kind of thing where they were out in the Canadian wilderness, and there was or maybe it might have been even Scandinavian wilderness. I can't remember, but there was an antlered creature that was like a terrorizing.
I have no idea.
It's where I'll look it up. I'll find the name. I can't remember the name now. I didn't anticipate actually mentioning it, but it's definitely worth a watch. It's one of the better Netflix horror movies that's out there.
Oh, okay. We will pass that along for you guys.
Very culty.
Nice.
So,
yeah, as Mike mentioned, we're going to slide right into our next chapter for Edgar Wright's next installment, a movie called Last Night in Soho. And this is probably the first on our list of only a few that I'm shocked that we're including an Edgar Wright movie in a discussion about horror movies. I mean, at best, you could. I don't even think you could call Shaun of the Dead a horror movie. It is such satire. It is such, a spoof of the genre that things like the elements that exist within that movie and Hot Fuzz and The World's End, even
the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy.
Exactly. Like at best, you could really not ever call them like even attempting to actually be horror movies. That's not what they set out to be, I don't think.
I
And
would
so
say they're satirical horror movies.
very much, very much. I mean, they're
It's his
in
homage
ways,
to the horror genre.
yeah.
Playing
I mean,
with his
it's
comedy
like
at the
Weird
same
Al
time.
Yankovic-ified horror movies.
Yes.
But this, I mean, as many times as I see this trailer, I can't get around it. Like this looks like a thriller horror.
Yeah,
And
this does not appear to be satirical at all. This appears to
No.
be very in itself.
oh yeah. Again, this is directed by Edgar Wright. In addition to what we mentioned, this is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
Baby Driver.
Baby Driver. Yeah, I mean, if you know him, you know him, and if you're here, I'm assuming you know him.
He has not had a miss.
No, he's one of the few.
Yeah, like everything has been really good. He doesn't
Yeah.
make a lot, but when he makes something, it's good.
The movie is co-written by Wright and Christy Wilson Carnes, who, as I can see, did a lot of work on the Penny Dreadful show, as well as a screenwriter on the movie 1917 that Sam Mendes did. The movie stars Anya Taylor-Joy, who is just having her moment the last couple of years. Good for her. An actress named Thomasin McKenzie, who I'm not really familiar with, who seems to play like Anya's contemporary on the other side of like the temporal world that they're inhabiting. It also includes Diana Rigg, who I wanted to call out because this is Olenna Tyrell, just the goat from Game of Thrones. Just the
Would have
best.
killed him myself. I
Yeah,
wish I had been me.
I want Cersei to know it was me. That's her.
Yeah.
And this was actually her final role before she passed away just a little while ago. The movie also includes Matt Smith of Doctor Who fame mostly, Terrence Stamp, who is just, he's freaking Terrence Stamp. Jessie May Lee, who I'm only calling out because she is in Netflix's Shadow and Bone show that is relatively new that Sarah and I watched over the winter. And this was fun. The Phelps twins from the Harry Potter series are in this film.
And
that just
seen
made
that,
me
but I
smile.
didn't see them in the trailer.
They weren't. I don't believe I saw them either, but I saw them in the cast list, so I just wanted to mention them.
Does it list them as different people? Or are they
Yes.
playing... Okay, so they're playing twins. They're going to both appear.
I think they're based on the character names, they're effectively playing twins.
Okay.
But they'll both be on screen at the same time, I'm presuming. Instead of like them both playing the same character for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, based on what we've seen so far, what do you think? I mean, it seems very different for him.
See, to me, it looked like kind of a time travel kind of weird, like temporal time travel kind of thing. The way you said earlier, horror that is going to have some other layered elements in it that are going to be kind of wild.
Mm-hmm.
Thomasin McKenzie, I don't remember what I know her from, but I like as soon as the trailer starts and you see her a lot in the trailer, I recognize her from I don't know what, but I know I have seen her in things.
Okay.
Anya Taylor-Joy, you stated it right. She's killing it lately. She's doing everything. I mean, she's everywhere right now. And there's good reason for it. And what's gonna happen? I don't fucking know. You get a little bit of an idea of what's going on with like she's kind of becoming the other person, whether completely or temporarily or what. That's the whole part. You don't know what is really going there, but she's experiencing the things that Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie's characters seem like they're going to be sharing experiences.
Yeah,
To
that's
what
the vibe I
extent
got
and
too.
to what end, I don't know. Or why and all that. Of course, that's something you got to watch the movie to find out. But it looks very much like an Edgar Wright production. And I got a lot of vibes from this trailer that, even though the movies are very different, but the Bad Times at the something
El Royale?
El Royale, yeah. I got a lot of similar vibes, and I really like that movie. So I could see really liking this one too, and it's Edgar Wright, so I'm there.
Yeah, that's a good comparison now that you bring it up. And I think I might know where you're going with this. Thomasin McKenzie was in Jojo Rabbit.
Yes.
I think she plays the young Jewish girl that
she does.
Finds.
Yeah.
Elsa.
And she was excellent.
Yes.
She was fantastic in that movie. I think didn't she get nominated for that?
Not sure.
She should have
been. I know the movie in general got a lot of praise.
Yeah. That was a fantastic movie, and thank you to Taika for delivering us that movie.
Yeah.
Maybe in the future we'll get a crossover between the two of them. Maybe Edgar and Taika can make a movie together.
Oh, that'd be fantastic.
I feel like they'd work.
Oh, I don't doubt that. That'd be amazing. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot else to add for this as well, but it's such a departure and not something that I would assume would come from Edgar Wright. So the imagery and the mixing of some, like, it's a period piece, but it's again, like, to use that word, temporal, and there's like other, like, I don't know what the hell is happening, but I like it.
Yeah. What remains to be seen is, will Brian see this in the theater, because it's Edgar Wright, who happens to be his favorite director. But it's also horror, which happens to be his least favorite genre.
And I don't see an official rating on it yet.
Yeah.
So I mean, that might be
where
the determining factor.
Yeah, that's possible.
But we will see. I imagine there's a chance I would want to see this more than once. So maybe you and I do the test run together, and if we think it's going to be up his alley enough, we do that. He'll come with us for the return.
Absolutely. I'm there. I'm there for that, because it's Edgar Wright. I'm there. So
sweet. It's a deal. It's a date.
Yay. I'll get my heels.
All right, scooting on. We have got a new chapter in the Insidious franchise apparently coming maybe soon. We're not sure about this. I have not seen anything about this. I actually came across this today as I was finalizing the outline for our discussion. The current release date that I see for this might be as early as November 11th.
Okay.
This is going to be called Insidious: The Dark Realm. This will be the 5th installment in the Insidious franchise. We had Insidious 1, 2, 3. Then I think it was the Last Keys.
It was something with a key.
The Keys. That was number 4, and now we have The Dark Realm. This will be directed by the Lost or Last Keys chapter director, same guy. Adam Robitel is coming back for this, who also did both Escape Room movies. I actually kind of liked the first one quite a bit, and we saw the second one this summer. I was pleasantly surprised with them finding an angle to continue it, I will say.
Okay.
I think the first one is stronger, but I enjoyed them well enough. And interestingly, this is apparently going to be written by Ryan Ragland. That, as far as I can tell, this is literally his first credit. Like, he has nothing else of any type, of any department, of anything on his IMDb record. But he was given apparently the sole job of writing the screenplay for this, so that could go either way. We have Lynn Shay, Spencer Locke, and Caitlin Gerard returning in their roles from the 4th installment, so they are directly continuing some manner of storyline and arc from those folks. No word yet as to whether we'll see Rose Byrne or Patrick Wilson, but fingers crossed they can tie that back, because that would be really fun.
Guessing no word on Lee Wannell either.
Their involvement, no. I did see that. I think James Wan, he has like a weird credit on this one. It's like consulting director or something like that.
It's probably something that he's just required to get on any of these films that are made.
I mean, you see things like this categorized as like characters created by, and they end up in the writing credits. This was actually in the directing credit. As something I'd not really seen before, but I'm not sure. Lee Wannell is off, after doing The Invisible Man. He's off. I forget. He's doing another. I want to say another one of the Universal Monsters, if I'm not mistaken.
They're still doing that? I didn't even
Yeah, I think
realize they were continuing that.
Yeah, I think they abandoned the whole
Monsterverse.
Monsterverse, like Dark Universe thing they were going for and whatnot. But yeah, I think he got a remake job. Now I'm curious and I'm looking it up.
See, like, I find that to be a shame, not necessarily because, like, Tom Cruise's The Mummy interested me, not at all, but Russell Crowe as, like, Jekyll and Hyde, I really wanted to see that happen. And
Yeah.
I'm really, like, I hope that still comes back to him getting to play that role.
Gotcha. It might, but he's doing the Wolfman.
Oh, okay.
That's what he's doing. And honestly, I thought that Invisible Man was actually really cool.
Yeah, that was good.
So, and he was the, I think, like, main writer and story and everything and screenplay on that. So we'll see what he does with that. But that's what he's off doing. But he's probably still acting as, like, you know, an executive producer or something, because I don't think they're ever walking away from this. It's too much of a moneymaker.
Well, yeah, like, you're right.
But yeah, I mean, I've liked this franchise well enough that I will probably see this at some point. Depending on release date, we'll see what's happening in the world if we'll get to the theater for it. But does this even hold interest for you?
Well, for me, I'm in the state of, like, Insidious 1 and 2 are in this upper echelon for me of really, really good horror movies. 3 is good, and I felt like 4 was not at all. And
Okay.
so I'm still gonna watch this, but after where 4 was, does it get me to a theater? No.
I'm with you.
You know, like, it, you know, 3 got me to the theater to see 4. 4 is not getting me to the theater to see 5. Now, again, if Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne sign on, you know, were part of it and they were coming back around, it's kind of like the whole idea of, like, actors coming back around. Like, when Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga do a Conjuring, I'm there for that. When it's another Annabelle, it's like, or it's another offshoot that doesn't include them, I'm kind of like, well, it probably won't be as good.
Gotcha.
You know.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see where this goes.
Yeah.
Well, whether, you know, like I said, whether that will be coming in November is still to be determined, but it seems mostly confident to say that we are getting a Resident Evil franchise reboot in late November, right around, actually, I think it's a Thanksgiving release. Day before Thanksgiving, as of now, if everything holds true, on November 24th, we will be getting Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. We got, I think, 7 chapters in the previous
Paul
franchise.
W.S. Anderson stuff.
Yeah, from like 2002 all the way through like 2017 or something.
Yeah.
And it seems like they are done with those and they're going for reboots now. It kind of looks like this is a complete like origin remake, a quasi prequel even to what we saw from those, like even giving like a backstory to where they started from. But I don't think it's supposed to be connected in any way.
I certainly hope it's not.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much. I think it's still going to be like you're going to get a zombie outbreak, but it's a bit more from what I could tell.
Resident Evil, you're going to
a lot of it looks like Resident Evil 1 the game.
Well,
like the original game is like like a strong story basis.
I would say Resident Evil 2 would probably be the story. Well, all the imagery they're using is around the RPD.
Okay.
You'll have to forgive me for nerding out for a minute here about Resident Evil is in my top 3 video game franchise favorites ever.
Okay.
So the first game takes place at the mansion, the Spencer Mansion, in the Arklay Mountains outside of Raccoon City. This title is Welcome to Raccoon City. That's one tell that this is more based around the events of 2 and 3. The other is a lot of the imagery that we've seen, even though we don't have a trailer, they have shown imagery based around the Raccoon Police Department, which is a major setting in both the second and third games. The little bit of difference, they have cast Leon Kennedy, they have cast Jill Valentine, but they also cast Chris, who does not show up in those 2 games.
Oh, okay.
He appears in the first game with Jill, with Rebecca, who are both also cast here. And then he doesn't appear again until Resident Evil 5.
Oh, okay.
He goes off and starts doing other stuff. Still fighting zombies in the background, but for a different purpose. Well, same purpose, fighting the same whatever. He doesn't. He's away for a while. But we also have Claire Redfield cast.
Mm-hmm.
This tells us a lot because Claire doesn't show up till 2. Jill is very present in Resident Evil 3. She's the main character. We have a lot of that going on. The question is, how much are they going to stick to the feeling of the Resident Evil franchise as a game series versus what they've already done? And for me, like, the way that... Have you played Resident Evil? Have you...
It's been... I played, like, the first 2 with friends when I was, like, 14 years old.
Okay.
That's about it.
The Resident Evil franchise created a genre of gaming known as survival horror. And the idea of it was you were actually supposed to be put into a situation where you had to survive on the resources given in a zombie outbreak survival situation.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time as solving a mystery as to how it started and what was going on and all this shit, you have very limited resources as you play through the game, and everything is more about the tension building as opposed to the over-the-top action we got in the previous series.
Okay.
So which route are they going to go? Are they going to build the horror end or the action end? Because if there's one thing that fans of the video games had a problem with the movies, was that the games weren't built around over-the-top action.
No. Not from
and
what I
even
remember.
when the games eventually started to incorporate a lot of action, the fans of the game series hated the game, Resident Evil 6, that turned into more of an action game. So much so that the games rebooted themselves into a first-person, more modern horror perspective.
Mm.
The game series itself not rebooted, but changed how they approach things altogether because they went too far into the action, which is why I really wasn't enjoying the Anderson films as Resident Evil films. I still think they were fun films, but not as Resident Evil. They weren't.
I see.
They were never Resident Evil movies in characters, like, other than in character names.
Oh, I see.
That was as far as they went.
Yeah, you mentioned characters cast. We'll wrap up this segment with talking about creation. So we got it's written and directed by Johannes Roberts of the 47 Meters Down movies, along with the sequel to The Strangers. And it's going to star Kaya Scodelario from The Maze Runner, Pirates of the Caribbean 5, and more recently Crawl. We have Hannah John Kamen from Tomb Raider, Ready Player One, and you might know her as Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Indeed. We have Tom Hopper from Game of Thrones and Umbrella Academy. Robbie Amell, brother of Steven, from the Babysitter movies and The Flash, among many others, as well as Neil McDonough and Donald Logue, rounding out some of our more recognizable cast. So it could be a really fun Thanksgiving to go see some zombie survival stuff right after the turkey.
I will be there.
I probably will be too, honestly. That sounds like a fun way to spend the holiday weekend.
I hope they do it right this time. I hope they do it justice. The games are so great.
Yeah, and they're so cinematic in nature anyway. It could definitely be a lot of fun if they do a fun zombie survival type of game.
And type of movie. I better hear the term Jill sandwich, or I'm not. I'm gonna be pissed.
We'll see what happens. All right, so this one's gonna be difficult for us to adhere to our 5-minute mark, but we are gonna do our best. The last one that we have currently a tentative 2021 release date for is we mentioned it before, but this kind of took me out of surprise, out of nowhere. We are apparently getting Guillermo del Toro's next directed movie called Nightmare Alley on December the 2nd. It's co-written by Del Toro and Kim Morgan. It's based on William Lindsay Gresham's novel, presumably of the same name. I didn't actually look that up. But I'm going to look at the cast for you guys for a second, because you're going to think, like I'm going to say a name or two, and you're like, wow, that sounds pretty cool. And then I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
And it just keeps, like, I was so surprised when I saw this today. So you, right off the bat, you start with Bradley Cooper
playing Indiana Jones.
What it looks like, effectively, yeah. In like a 1908 circus.
Yeah.
Then you get Cate Blanchett. Oh, that's not enough for you? How about Willem Dafoe? And Rooney Mara? And Toni Collette? And Mary Steenburgen? And Ron Perlman? And Tim Blake Nelson? And David Statham? Or Straight-haired. Yeah, I always say this name wrong. And Clifton Collins Jr. And Richard Jenkins. And this person who I'm going to call out because we just watched Deadwood for the first time and he was awesome, an actor named Jim Beaver. He's freaking awesome on Deadwood. If you've never seen that show, watch it. He's in this too, and that's amazing. Like I think of all those names I just said in a movie apparently set in like the early 1900s, maybe late 1800s at best, and written and directed by Guillermo del Toro. Like, we don't really actually have to say anything, but we got like 3 more minutes to say what we want about this. Like,
you had me at the first 3 actors. I mean, if you tell me Bradley Cooper, Cate Blanchett, and Willem Dafoe are starring in a movie together, written and directed by Guillermo del Toro, I don't need to know anything else.
Right?
To get me to the theater the day it comes out, I don't need to hear another thing. This looks so fucking weird and over the top. Bradley Cooper has a third eye in this movie. Did you catch that in the trailer?
I did not.
The eye in the middle of his forehead. That's why he wears the hat down over his head.
Oh, wow,
yeah,
okay.
he's got like the all-seeing eye in the middle of his head. Yes, you're going to get to see Bradley Cooper with an eye in the middle of his forehead. I don't know if it's ever going to open. I don't know what they're going to do with it. But you see it for like a few frames when he doesn't have his hat on. You can see there's like an eyelid that's closed.
Okay.
It's not open. The eye's never open in the trailer, but you can see that it's clearly an eye on his forehead. The trailer is essentially narrated by Willem Dafoe, let's say.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
It's not really like narration. It's just him talking over his character, talking about this, I don't know, crazy baby child thing.
Yeah.
That hopefully we get to see at some point, I assume. You're not going to build it up that much, not for us to see.
Well, I think
there's so much going on.
The interesting part for me was Del Toro used like World War II as a background for Shape of Water. And like the weapons race and the sort of the burgeoning age of science before ethics.
Yes,
really got involved, right? The use of period pieces in this one, especially like the aesthetic and putting it in the type of look and environment that this apparently takes place in, adds absolutely to the interest factor to me. It just looks very different.
Yeah, like it. So if you haven't seen the trailer, it all looks to take place around like a freak show carnival kind of thing.
Like turn of the century kind of stuff.
Yeah, like very like come see the bearded lady and the 2-headed man and the what happens when people inbreed person. But there's like whole other layers of stuff going on here where I feel like Bradley Cooper's character looks to me to be playing some kind of detective, and it has like special abilities because of the all-seeing eye that he has on his forehead, whatever abilities that gives him.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. That jives more with what I was seeing. Okay.
And what is he researching? I don't fucking know. But like this just like I said, like you had me at the beginning real easy, but damn, like I cannot wait to see this movie. Like this is something that actually got me excited that I had no idea was happening.
Yeah.
You texted me about including it on the show, and then I went to see Ghost in the Shell with Brian and Ian, which we're going to talk about in a couple of days. and it was a preview on that. And I was blown away by how fucking weird and Guillermo del Toro the trailer was.
Nice.
Yes, I used his name like an adjective. It works.
He's going to Del Toro the crap out of it.
Yeah.
And there we go as a verb. See how many different parts of speech we can figure out how to do.
Del Toro!
Yeah.
Sorry, no, I just...
yeah, this is going to, like, if we had the ability to have done like an anticipated for 2021 list, and we had known about it early enough, this probably would have at least made my top 10.
I would say the same. If he's doing something, I'm paying attention.
Yeah, that's a good point. We adhered pretty well to that, a little bit over, but we're going to scoot right along. So as I said, that's the last of them that we have actual release dates for. Whether they hold or not, we'll be seeing. The next three quickly are going to be things that are just generally slated for 2021 right now. They don't have specific release dates, and so we don't know if that's actually going to happen or not, but we're going to just talk through them quickly. The first is apparently another Texas Chainsaw sequel. And similar to some of the other films we talked about earlier, like Candyman, even though I'm pretty sure this has even been done in this franchise before, this is supposed to be a direct sequel to the original. It's not using any other continuity or any other, and it's not even, a remake of the original. It's a sequel to the original. Now, the one interesting thing that I could say about this that seems is that it is assuming that nothing has happened between the first one and now. Like, there's a real story time gap of like 40 years.
Okay.
Between them, and this is only the second thing that ever happens after the first one occurred.
So no Bill Moseley with the weird coat hanger and
correct. And even though I actually kind of liked the one from 6 or 7 years ago, with Alexandra Daddario or whatever her name was.
I thought you were talking about the one that was like Leatherface's origin.
Oh, that one. No, I thought that was kind of crappy.
Okay. No. Fair. Yeah, it was Alexandra Daddario and what's her name from The Big Bang Theory.
Yes.
Was a vet.
Yeah.
She was a vet.
So like I didn't think that was all that bad, and that kind of continued. That was another one where it was like, oh hey, years later, here's the effect of it. It wasn't like because a lot of them that were made like prequels or remakes or whatever from like the early 2000s were
Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger somehow.
Yeah, but it still took the idea like, hey, it's still the 1970s, and we're continuing the story from that point. I do like the idea of, hey, what if nothing happened for 4 decades between now and then, and we're picking something up? That's a little bit of a different twist. I will say, our very first project we talked about, Don't Breathe 2, I'll remind what I said earlier, which is the creators of the Don't Breathe movies are acting as writers and producers. Story creators and producers on this, so we'll see what happens. And this movie is being directed by David Blue Garcia. The only person of note, and no offense to any of these folks, but the only person of note that I could see who will be starring in this is Alice Krige, perhaps. Character actress. If you looked her up, you would absolutely know her. Quickly, I could say like she has a small role as the like lead. I guess you call her like doctor in Thor: Dark World, who is examining Jane when she first gets to Asgard.
She was the witch in
Gretel and Hansel.
Yeah.
Yes. So I didn't I should have assumed there's a chance you would have saw that. I thought that movie was extremely crappy.
Oh, it was horrible.
So I wasn't going to mention it. But she did a good job in it.
She was good. For
Trekkie fans may recognize her from First Contact. She's a prominent role in there, but I'm not really sure where it's going to go from there. But what do you? I mean, just a short answer. Like, do you think we need this? Do you think the idea is worth exploring? If we do,
if it's done right, we need it.
Okay.
If it's not, we don't.
Don't bother.
So, kind of the way that you described like the Alexandra Daddario thing, I feel like they did really good with the Jessica Biel version.
Okay.
Like, I feel like that was good, and then it went nowhere. Like, nothing happened with it after that. You know what I mean? They waited, and there was, like, a movie that had Jordana Brewster in it.
Yeah.
And then, I think after that, the next thing was the Alexandra Daddario thing.
Yeah, there was a long time gap.
And I feel like it's a series that works. And I feel like part of the reason that you got, like, that gap is because Rob Zombie stepped in and kind of took over that genre of the weird family in the middle of nowhere in the desert of Texas.
That's a good point.
And he did it better. Like, than what they had been doing. I'm not saying he did better than the originals, but he did better than what they had been doing, and they didn't know if they could top it. And I feel like they stepped back. About that. And so, I guess, I haven't watched that 3 from Hell yet.
I haven't either.
But I feel like, you know, after The Devil's Rejects, he kind of fell off of that train that he was on for a while of doing those movies, and now it opens that genre up again, and I'm interested to see what they do. And their little teaser on the website that they put up is amazing, because there's not much there, but it's fucking creepy, and it works. So I'm hoping they do good. You know what I mean? Like, it's a franchise that I think has been treated like the first movie was very shock value, and it worked because other than maybe like The Last House on the Left around the same time, it hadn't been done where they did the shock value horror like that, where it was like, oh man, this is going to happen, but they're going to get away. Oh, they didn't get away. You know, like that whole, like, the horror of the thing that you think is going to happen, a lot of horror movies pull away from and don't let happen. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre let it happen.
Yeah, that's
fair. And that's the same way with, like, The Last House on the Left. It did that same kind of thing. Like, boy, I hope oh shit. You know? So I think if they can capture the shock value that the originals had, which is tougher today than it was then.
Yes.
If you can manage to do that today, you have something. And that's the legacy for me of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is that you have the ability to step into this franchise and say, this franchise is the one that goes the steps beyond the other ones that they just won't do. And do something so fucked up, you know, that, like, like, you get what I'm saying here? Like,
yeah.
Will they do that? I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah.
I keep hoping for it to happen, and you still get some solid movies out of the franchise, but not where it could go.
Yeah, I'm with you. And that's actually a good jumping off point, because our next entry is another sort of reboot, reignition, if you will. Jeepers Creepers. If anyone has seen any of these, there is a trilogy that exists so far. It is apparently getting a 4th installment, currently titled Jeepers Creepers Reborn. Again, does not have an official release date yet. Not much to say about this, actually, even like in terms of casting or anything. It is being directed by Timo Rensola. Apologies. Who I guess is best known for the Iron Sky franchise, from what I can see.
Oh, okay.
And written by someone named Sean Michael Argo. Not much to go on here, so I guess I'll just ask, are you familiar with Jeepers Creepers movies? Have you seen which ones, and what are your general feelings?
I have seen them all, and the first one was very good, and the other 2 were very not.
Okay.
Bring back Justin Long. I know he died in the first one. I don't care.
Make him
Put
the
Justin
new
Long
guy.
in every movie ever, and I'll be happy. He's
I agree
awesome. I want to see him more. He made the first movie good, in my opinion. The horror didn't. He did.
Yeah, which was shocking, because that movie is from 2001.
That was his first thing, wasn't it?
Just about. Like, if you put it in context, Dodgeball was 2004.
Yeah.
So this is 3 years before even
And then
that.
Tusk was like 08, 09?
Oh, no,
10?
Tusk was much later. Tusk was at least 2013, 2014.
Really?
Yeah. Like, Accepted was 2006.
2014, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, Accepted. I forgot he did that one, too, with, like, Jonah Hill and the Wiener thing.
Yeah, like Zack
Yeah.
and Miri was 2008.
Yeah,
So, like,
I remember that because I didn't want to see Jason Mewes' dick, but I did.
You lost that bet. But, yeah, like, in context. So, I mean, I from what I remember, I agree with your feelings of the first movie. I've only seen, so there was a weird thing where, like, the second movie, if I remember, was not sequelized until, like, years and years later.
Oh, yeah, it was well later.
And then the third one was like 2 years after that. Like, they moved very quickly. I kind of remember the second one being not too terrible, not nearly as good as the first.
The second
but
one,
the
they were all
third-
like stranded on the bus, right?
the bus. Yeah. And I forget what. Honestly, at this point, I forget what the third one was even about. I remember it not really being that great. The first one good.
Actually,
the second
2
one,
was only 2
watchable.
years later.
Oh, okay. So I had it reversed.
So it was 01 to 03, and
Okay.
then Jeepers Creepers 3 was 2017. It was
That's what it was.
14 years later for the third movie.
Okay, so at some point, yeah, then they came back for that, and now someone's trying to keep it alive again.
It's a franchise that's worth saving if they can do it.
Okay.
If it's just another version of 3, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's just another throwaway movie,
Uh-huh.
whatever. Okay, fine. You did it. You pissed me off. Fine. Just, like, I feel like had they left the first movie alone, it would be more of a cult classic had they never made a sequel.
I can see that.
You know, it would have a thing.
Yeah.
There would be a thing around that Jeepers Creepers movie. But they made, like, in my opinion, I still think the second one's, it's better than the third by a long shot, but it's still shitty.
Yeah, I could agree with that. And so hopefully, if they're going for a fourth bite at the apple, it will not be a steaming pile. And yeah, like you said, it could actually reignite some interest, and we'll have to see if they do it or just, again, as you said, like, throwaway.
Yeah, straight to DVD. Yes, it's 2021, and I said DVD. Straight to DVD is where I potentially see that movie going.
It's going to be automatically to home video.
They didn't even bother filming it in HD.
It will only be released on VHS.
I would buy that.
So we are in the final stretch, listeners. We have 3 more entries, and the next one is going to be the last of those that we have an ambiguous release date for, but it might make it out in 2021, if not, hopefully later. I wanted to include this because you'll see in a second. So this is called The Black Phone. We don't have a trailer. I don't even think there's like stills or anything out yet that I've seen, but this is written and directed by Scott Derrickson, who is of Sinister fame, The Day the Earth Stood Still remake, Deliver Us from Evil, and 2016's MCU Marvel's Doctor Strange. Derrickson was supposed to be writing and directing the sequel to Doctor Strange. When that fell apart with Marvel, this is the project he picked up, and this is what he's putting out for us. This movie is co-written by himself and his writing partner C. Robert Cargill, who they've worked on most of their stuff together. It is based on a short story by Joe Hill, who happens to be Stephen King's son and is the author of the Lock and Key graphic novel series. I love Derrickson. I have liked everything of his that I have seen, and I am bummed as hell that Doctor Strange was never allowed to be the horror movie genre film of the MCU that I wanted it to be, and that it could have been in his hands. But we're getting this instead, and I like his stuff, so I'm excited. The movie is bringing back Ethan Hawke, who he previously worked with in Sinister. An actor named Jeremy.
Movie.
Yes. An actor named Jeremy Davies, who, this is for Brian, who's not listening to this episode, I know, but Jeremy Davies plays Faraday on Lost, if you're a Lost fan. And
Tell Brian there's a Lost reference in here somewhere, and he has to find it and
Yes.
we're going to quiz him on it.
And it's way towards the end, so you have to listen all the way through.
Don't tell him that part.
Yeah, it's in there, dude. You got to find it. And then another actor named James Ransone. So we don't have much to go on. I don't know the short story. I don't know the plot of it, but I'm kind of going on faith with the creators. How do you feel?
I mean, same. The last time Derrickson and Hawk worked together to make a horror film, I fucking loved it. Sinister was one of those movies that I came across while looking for a horror movie to watch. We've all been there. Those of us that love horror, you're like, man, I've seen that. And you're looking through all this shit that's out there and you're like, huh, I haven't seen that one. And I came across Sinister. However the hell long ago that was.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, all right, let's watch this one. I've heard good things. And holy shit, that was a fucking awesome horror movie. And the sequel was good. I don't even know if Derrickson was involved in the sequel. But
I think he was probably on as like a producer still, but I don't believe so like James Ransone that I mentioned is in the sequel. He's in Sinister 2.
okay.
Among many other things. I think he was in It Chapter 2,
Okay.
if I recall. So yeah, I mean it's one of the few, like it had been a while since I had seen a good original idea. And
Yeah.
it had elements of like borrowed things from other types of scary
Oh,
movies.
absolutely.
But put together in a very unique way.
Yes. And, like having seen Sinister, again, if you haven't watched it, just go do it. You will not regret it. If you love horror, it is one of the better ones out there that you're going to find.
Agreed. I think this
especially
definitely has
that you
like
haven't heard
a
of.
seal of approval from both of us.
Yeah. So seeing Derrickson and Ethan Hawke come together again for another horror movie, that's all I really needed to know. I mean, the rest of the cast still looks really good in this. It's a lot of people whose faces you'll recognize, but names you won't know.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's an excellent way to put it, actually.
Yeah, like you'll know, but you won't know till you see it. And
Yeah.
But Ethan Hawke, I mean, everybody knows who Ethan Hawke is. Especially, I guess, with like the resurgence of his name because of Maya. She's brought more recognition to his name now than he used to have. 20 years ago, he was a much bigger name than he is now.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess her rise has kind of given rise to his name again. And hopefully this movie can live up to the expectations. There's not a whole lot to go on. Like you said, there's not a lot there, but those two working together did really good before.
Yeah, I'm expecting them to knock it out of the park. I don't think he hasn't delivered a dud yet, in my opinion.
Yeah, Derrickson's a stud. If you're making a horror movie, Derrickson's where you want to be.
Yeah, it should be a good one. All right, so we got our final two here, and they're kind of big ones, but we'll try to fit them in. Believe it or not, in early January of 2022, we are getting a 5th installment of the Scream franchise. Quick history: created by Wes Craven. The idea actually written by someone else, but the general idea created by Wes Craven. He directed the first 3, actually all four. We got Scream in 1996. We very quickly got Scream 2 in 1997. Then we got Scream 3 in 2000. Took an 11-year hiatus until 2011 before we got Scream 4. Unfortunately, in the past couple of years, we lost Wes Craven. Yeah. So this will be the first one that he's not a part of. He's not behind the story, the production. He's not behind the director's chair. So in 2022, we are maybe getting Scream 5, but it is bringing back Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, David Arquette. This I thought was interesting. Mary Shelton, bringing her back from Scream 4. She was one of the deputies in Scream 4.
Okay.
And we are adding newcomers that I'm calling out. Jack Quaid, who has been riding high the last couple of years from The Boys and some other projects.
Previously, The Hunger Games.
Yep, in the first Hunger Games movie.
He was Marvel.
and an actor named Kyle Gallner, who, if you, again, he's one of those people, look him up and look his resume up, you're like, oh, holy shit, yeah, he's that kid. He's, more grown up now. He's, but he has a really good resume, and he's like, oh, he's in that and that and that and that. But so I guess we'll say quickly, so who is bringing this to us if Wes is no longer around? So we have Matt Bettinelli Olpin and Tyler Gillette, who are the team behind a couple of things, but the thing that caught my attention, they're the team that brought us Ready or Not 2 years ago. And I thought Ready or Not was one of the funnest, again, original ideas that I've seen in scary movies, horror movies, thrillers in a long, long time. And I enjoyed the hell out of that movie.
Agreed.
Along with them, it is being written by, I'm sorry, they are the directing team on this one. The film is being written by James Vanderbilt. His resume includes Basic, Zodiac, The Losers, both Amazing Spider-Man films, and Independence Day Resurgence. That last one does not bode well, but
yeah, I was gonna say, it's like, oh yeah.
It kind of gets there.
No, what happened?
Right, but hey, we got to talk about the good and the bad.
That's true.
Along
That's true.
with it's been co-written with Gary Busick, who was one of the other writers on Ready or Not. So mainly the Ready or Not team is coming for Scream.
It's a good choice of
I think if you're going to do it. Yeah, if you're going to do it. So the question is, what are your general feelings about Scream quickly, and
So-
do we need this?
Does the name Dave Sheridan turn up anywhere in the cast list?
I do not know off the top of my head. I will look.
Okay, so the reason I ask is because if this is the last Scream movie that we're gonna get, I would love to see them throw in a homage to Scary Movie, have Officer Doofy show up just once. I just for the hell of it, he doesn't have to be Officer Doofy in the movie, but it would be fun. Having said that, I didn't know that about the team that was taking this over.
Mm-hmm.
The whole time that I heard about Scream 5 and they were doing it again, I'm like, man, I know Jordan Peele just did the whole thing with Candyman. I would have really loved to see him take over and take a shot at Scream and see what he would do with it, just because my curiosity piques that interest. Like, what would he do with this?
Sure.
And I think right now he's kind of the name in horror. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, in terms of making top quality horror films. Him and, we just talked about Del Toro and Derrickson. I think those are the three names kind of at the top of the list if you were going to pick out somebody to take over a big franchise that you would want to nab.
Yeah, definitely. That's the cream of the crop right now.
So, seeing these guys take over, they just did Ready or Not. That movie was amazing. I love that movie.
It's so fun at the same time being kind of a serious, holy shit, she needs to survive.
Well, yeah, it takes its turns from suspense to fun. 3/4 of that movie is suspenseful as hell, and it's her surviving and all that. And then the last quarter, when everything comes to light and everything's going on, and she just basically fucking kills everybody.
Yeah, spoilers.
It's a couple years old now.
Yeah,
Get over it.
I know.
Is amazing. And speaking of people up and coming in horror, Samara Weaving, what she did with The Babysitter and with Ready or Not, I really hope we see her more in horror, because she is at home in the genre. She's good in other stuff too, but in horror, I feel like she's killing it. But in terms of Scream 5, to me, I think where Scream 4 fell off for me, that the other movies didn't, was that they were serious takes on a critical look at the genre.
Yes.
They were taking a critical look at why the genre is what it is, and still managing to be a horror film doing it, as opposed to something like Scary Movie, which was just purely satirical, or Shaun of the Dead, which was comedy.
Right.
They took it and they managed to keep it a horror film, I guess like Cabin in the Woods did.
Yes.
Where you have this horror film that is still a horror film in genre, and it feels like a horror film, but it takes this very satirical look at how horror films are made.
Yeah, it's deconstructing the genre as part of the plot.
Exactly. And I want to see that from Scream 5 again. I feel like we didn't see that from Scream 4.
Not as much. I did appreciate, because 11 years in between 3 and 4, I was like, why are they coming back to this? What could they possibly do? In the age of burgeoning social media, and, you know, before we had Snapchatters and Viners and now TikTokers, I think the first way that you heard people being described were YouTube stars. That was
YouTubers.
Like the first adjective for a social media internet celebrity, if you want to call it, like whatever word. Like, I've hated all of it, but
I was gonna say I have some choice words that I'm not gonna use.
I do. Like, I despise the notion of all of that for the most part, and it made sense. Like, what they did with Scream 4 made sense in the context they put it in, the spin that they gave it in what was happening in the world. Right now, I don't know what they're gonna do in order to make it so self-referential.
Right.
That's like the foundation of the franchise.
I guess I understand what Scream 4 did.
Not self-referential, introspective, I should say.
Like, my problem with Scream 4 is that it didn't take on the horror genre of the time.
Okay.
It took on society in its own way, but I don't feel like it took on what was happening in horror the way that Scream did.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Like the difference there. And I'd rather things take on their own genre and still, like, that's why Cabin in the Woods is so fucking good, is because it takes on its own genre and says, we can still make a horror movie out of it while still making an ass out of other horror movies. And I love that about it. And Scream originally did that. That was Jamie Kennedy's entire character.
Yeah.
Was making an ass of other horror movies. And so I want to see that again. I want to see them manage to maintain a horror movie while throwing things like Insidious and The Conjuring and Paranormal Activity and, I don't know, what's another big horror movie of the time?
Anymore it would be like The Purge. It would be sort of like, and we just talked about Sinister. It would be
throw them under the bus.
You know?
Throw those things under the bus while maintaining your horror genre.
Okay.
Somehow, put them on notice. Like, we see you, you're formulaic, and this is what you're doing. And we're going to point it out, and we're going to make fun of it at the same time as making a horror movie. I want to see that from Scream 5. Can they do it? We'll find out.
We will. I'm going to be there as well.
Yeah, that's another date. That's a thing.
I'm there.
Can't
just
miss
filling
that
in the
one.
calendar now.
Yeah.
So, folks, we are bringing this in for a landing with our last entry. Thanks for hanging in with us. We're going to get you through January of 2022, and this is going to be an interesting way to end because we are including a comic book movie, a for real mainstream regular comic book movie in this discussion. And we could be completely wrong about this. We'll have to see when the movie gets released, but for all intents and purposes, Sony is marketing Jared Leto's Morbius in the way that I wanted Doctor Strange to look. I wanted Doctor Strange to be marketed with the same feel that I think Morbius might have, where there's this background to it, But if Sony makes a horror movie, granted a PG-13, currently rated horror movie, but if they make a horror movie out of their comic book stuff that's directly related to Spider-Man, because we know it is, because Michael Keaton's in it at some point, whether it's a cameo or it's something bigger.
But is he
that's how I
the
feel
same
about
character? Do we have that confirmation yet?
I think we've had this discussion before. I don't know if we've had official confirmation, but I can't see it not being.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, I feel like that's like Sony hijacking the MCU, but...
Well, sure. I mean, why wouldn't they?
Wow.
But I mean, we're gonna get Jared Leto in the titular role of Morbius. Again, Michael Keaton will be involved in some capacity. We get Adria Arjano, who I absolutely love from the Belko Experiment. She was also in Six Underground, as well as a number of others.
That was a good movie, by the way.
Yeah, I really dug that. Jared Harris, they have finally pulled into a comic book movie. Matt Smith is diving into comic book movies as well. And Tyrese Gibson is going to be part of this Sony picture.
Oh, God. I didn't notice that part of it.
Yeah. I tried looking back because this was one that was originally supposed to be, I think, last summer. And I could have sworn like because I knew we got a trailer in like late 2019, early 2020. So I looked back on the episodes to see if we had a prior discussion about it. We might have, but I didn't see it timestamped anywhere. So maybe we didn't.
No, I don't feel like we talked about it.
If any of this detail is a repeat, I apologize. But this will be directed by Daniel Espinosa, who you might be familiar with from the movie Safe House with Ryan Reynolds and Denzel, as well as the 2017 movie Life, also with Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal, among others. This I love, but we got to talk about this. So this is going to be written by the team of Matt Sazama and, I shit you not, this is a real person, Burke Sharpless.
Okay.
This is going to be a roller coaster. So they are responsible for Dracula Untold, which was kind of a miss. The Last Witch Hunter, which I found really shitty.
I mean, you're getting worse. Dracula Untold was better than Last Witch Hunter, but
yeah, it's kind of in descending order for a while.
I know where you're going. I heard Gods, so I already know it.
Gods of Egypt.
Yep, Nikolai Coster-Waldau.
I'm sorry if you've seen that. I don't find anything redeeming about that movie. However,
goddamn Jaime Lannister being used in horrible ways.
Oh, I know, it's so bad.
He's so good, and what was he doing in that movie?
But then they come out of that and they give us 2017's Power Rangers reboot, which I actually really dig still.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Granted, I don't think it's like
I will give you okay, but it was surprising and original, and I liked it.
Fair, but is it redeeming of the other three? Is it like, those three exist and this one okay.
Completely fair. No, but it does show improvement.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yes, and arguably shows improvement.
Which is not hard, though.
Yeah.
Like it's not...
And they are also, I don't know if anyone else has been watching this, they are heavily involved in writing for the Lost in Space show, the resurgence of the Lost in Space show on Netflix.
Interesting, because that's actually kind of good.
So that is your creative team. Again, this is a Spider-Man, modern Spider-Man universe movie from Sony, tangential to all of the MCU stuff. We still don't know. But
we don't know how that's going to work.
We're going to see if it actually turns out to be a horror movie or what it really is. But by all looks of it, it's being marketed that way. So that's why it's included here. So closing thoughts for Morbius, closing thoughts for the show, Mike. What do you think?
So here's the thing with Morbius. For me, I don't mind the idea of what they're doing. Jared Leto looks like he's going to kill it. He's a really good actor.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's going to do very good here. I just don't know that we needed a Morbius movie.
Okay.
I still feel like I'm looking at this as a comic book fan, and I'm saying there is dozens of other Spider-Man related movies I would take before Morbius.
Okay.
And Morbius is cool, and we'll see how it goes. As a horror movie, I don't feel like it's going to function as much as we like. As much as we might be including it here, I don't see it functioning as a horror movie. In terms of like actually being scary, actually having horror, all that jazz that goes along with like a horror movie.
Yeah, I'm probably building that aspect up in my mind way too much as hope, but
so I feel like the best shot we had at a horror movie in a actual like comic book movie sense superhero movie was Derrickson doing Multiverse of Madness, and that got shut down, I guess, because he probably leaned too far into the horror for Marvel.
That'd be my guess.
I
don't think no one will ever admit it, but that's my guess.
Yeah, he wanted to do too much that was him.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted to do too much of his own thing, and they were like, we still got to market this to kids.
Yeah.
And they said no. So that might be the closest we ever get. In these terms, they're still going to market this to Spider-Man fans. I don't see it really going full horror.
Full horror, no. Again, it's PG-13. But if they're also looking at, we want to draw in teenage fans who also like we want to give it some
Jared
edge.
Leto for that.
Right,
Jared Leto is like the edgy star or whatever. I don't know.
Right, but we want to make it seem alternative. We want to make it seem edgy. So by at least marketing it as like a monster vampire, horror type movie.
Sure.
If it actually kind of has that tone to some degree, who knows?
Yeah, I mean, like the marketing, I feel like they could push in one direction while the movie doesn't actually go that direction. I feel like they could kind of lie in the marketing a bit, fib, if you will.
Yeah.
But like for me, I feel like, and this is a personal thing, what Jared Leto did with what we got to see. I don't know if it was a reshoot or if it was old footage at the end of the Snyder Cut that we just saw, what he did with the Joker at the end of that he didn't get to do before that. It's going to be hard for me to separate that.
Okay.
Because he did so well in that short bit at the end of the Snyder Cut. It's going to be difficult for me to separate him from that character.
Okay.
Whereas, like, what he did in Suicide Squad as the Joker, I would just toss to the curb and not give a shit about. And then all of a sudden, at the end of the Snyder Cut, here's this amazing version of the Joker played by Jared Leto that I'm like, I need more of that. And we're probably never going to get it. And now I have to deal with him as Morbius. Which, no offense to Morbius as a character, you're not the fucking Joker. Like, it's just not, they're way different tiers. So, I feel like there's so much more that I wish they could do with Jared Leto in the MCU that Sony kind of forcing him into that role of Morbius, I don't know if I like it. And so, like, I'm very on the fence about that.
Yeah, fair. I mean, it's obviously a film they want us to see. They're giving it a winter release if everything holds true. And if you think about it, if that holds true, it's like a month, like slightly over a month after Spider-Man.
Yeah.
So like they're trying to ride that wave. And
I feel like they're trying to set up that whole. They're gonna take Spider-Man away from the MCU.
Yeah, and maybe that's it. It's like, okay, here's the next
thing.
Here's the next building block. We're gonna. This is opportune timing. We had to delay this movie. Spider-Man 3 is going to be out in December. Put it out a couple weeks later.
Well, you got Carnage, and then you've got Spider-Man, and then you've got Morbius. And if people follow in that line, Sony might have a thing there if Tom Holland will sign on to just work with Sony. If Tom Holland doesn't sign on to just their movies,
Mm-hmm.
they're fucked.
Yeah, possibly.
I feel like if it's not the same Spider-Man, they're not gonna hold.
If we get, I doubt we will, but if we happen to get I don't even know if they'd be allowed. They probably could, but like if we get a Tom Holland or Spider-Man direct mention, maybe not even a cameo. Like think about it, Venom does not mention
if Michael Keaton's
Spider-Man
in it,
at all.
Like if Michael Keaton is in it as Vulture,
yeah.
If he's the same character, that's a direct mention.
If he's Toomes, I get it, and maybe that's the closest that they could get so far.
Yeah, I agree.
Like maybe part of the Sony deal. We'll never know. We always say this for years now.
Who the hell knows what the fuck that deal's
may
gonna
have
become.
been like while, for instance, while Tom Holland is cast in the role or something for these number of or for these number of movies that we're entering this agreement about, Spider-Man specifically like cannot be mentioned in your other movies, Sony.
Yeah.
Like they may have had that stipulation type of thing. So we'll, again, like we always say on the show, we'll have to wait and see. But I agree. All right, I guess that's, as Brian likes to say, that's where we're going to close it down, I suppose.
Sure.
Everybody, thank you for staying with us, riding this. We hope you found it comprehensive and informative, and we all wish you all a very, very spooky 2021 season to come.
Fall, autumn, Halloween, Spooktoberfest.
All of it. Enjoy it. Get your decorations out now. Make us proud. If anybody wants movie nights or viewing partners or dates for the theater for any of these, hit either one of us up. I'm sure we'll possibly consider it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance we'll consider it, but you need to be cool. Just saying, if you're not cool, I'm not going.
You might have to bribe Mike and buy his popcorn for him.
Whoa,
to get him out.
Whoa.
To get him out of the house for some
Charleston
of these,
shoes only.
There you go. Everyone's got their price.
Yeah, you need Charleston shoes. If I ain't got those, I'm not going.
So you know what it's going to cost you. Come find us, and yeah, we're looking forward to riding this season with you guys. Thank you again for giving us the opportunity. I don't have Brian's outline, so I know you can find the show on Facebook, Twitter, the podcast
Spotify,
is on all the streaming
Anchor
sites.
FM, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, all that stuff. You can find Brian at Jedi Bry Guy. That's Jedi with an I, Brian with a, or Bry with a Y, on Twitch.
So hot. Sorry, I had to fill in for Andy.
Yeah, you had to fill in. Okay, the Andy thing had to happen. You can find him there on Twitch. If we ever happen to do a live show, you will find us there, but I don't know if we're ever doing another one again. You can email the Gmail thing. He's not going to check it, so it doesn't matter what the email address is. BG Super Friends on Twitter. And
I think it's Bry Guy Super Friends on Facebook.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I'm sure if you're
Google over 40 and you want to
Bry
find
Guy
us,
Super
check out
Friends,
Facebook.
you'll find the things. That's how the internet works. We all know how this happens, right?
You know what? That's true, but like making sure people know that it's available to them. That's the important thing that we're doing here.
Absolutely.
If we are not available on the platform that you want us to be available on, you're not hearing this right now, so fuck off. No, I'm kidding. If we're not available on that platform and you happen to be hearing us somewhere else, let us know and we will make sure that we find ourselves available on that platform somewhere in the future.
Absolutely. Trying to get to
Brian,
get in as many ears as possible. Well, thank you guys again. Mike, thanks for anchoring this with me too. We will hopefully see you guys in a couple of months with a 2022 update. And here's to not losing another episode.
And here's to swimming with bow-legged women.
Thanks, guys. Take care.